All right, we'll move on to our 10:30. We're pretty close. Casey.
I'm going to introduce Mr. Bond yet again for his monthly report and let him do his presentation and introduce his guests that he brought with him this month, and then we'll go into the driver's class.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your time, audience, and listening forward. I appreciate always the opportunity.
Name and address, please, sir.
Travis Bonds, Hoops, Florida. I would like to go ahead and start my presentation by introducing Cynthia, who works for our Hardee Continuum Labs here at the Bedford Park.
Hello. My name is Cynthia Delaperry Paxton. I have lived in Hardee County for about 20 years. We moved here from Indianapolis, Indiana. And it didn't take very long for us to start to appreciate the chit-chat in the grocery store and all the small town things that come with living in Wauchula. And I got married earlier this year, and so it's mine and my husband's desire to be able to stay here in Hardee County. I purchased a house here 5 years ago, just down here on Main Street across from the post office, and we totally restored it. It was built in 1918, and I hope to continue to do work on the house. I've been a nurse for 11 years, and I worked most of my time with traumatic brain injury clients at a facility here in Hardee County. It came to be this past fall that my job security with that organization was questioned, and wasn't sure how much longer that facility was going to be here in Hardee County. At that time, I was brought to my attention that Continuum Labs was going to be coming into this county, and was encouraged to apply. So I put in my application and spoke with Travis and Courtney, and I was really excited to learn they were working on a medical software that my nursing knowledge and skills could be used for. Prior to coming to Hardee County, or coming to Continuum Labs, I had no knowledge of computer skills at all. I played around on Facebook, and that was about it. So it was a little scary coming into a new profession, but I was excited to learn new skills where I could use my nursing knowledge, not just like hands-on patient care. I was hired on to work with the quality assurance department for Continuum Labs, with the potential to work towards product design and development. And so in the 4 months that I've been with Continuum Labs, like I said, I was hired on as a QA team member. Since I started in November, I initially was like, oh my goodness, but I have learned a ton, and I'm light years away from where I started. I've been invited to become a part of the total design process for what we're doing with CareSync. I'm currently primarily the primary QA person for CareSync. And like I said, I'm involved in all of the planning meetings that take place to produce the new screens and the new applications that we're putting out there with CareSync. So some of the things I do is I manage and create bugs, tasks, and user stories which are used to develop and enhance our product. So once we go through all of the meetings, we decide what it is we want the product to do and what we want it to look like. I'm in charge of sort of organizing those in the internal program that we use, and maintaining communication between the project manager and the developers to get those tasks accomplished. I use the specs, which are sort of a mock-up of what we want the page to look like, or the screens to look like, once we sort of discuss them. And I go through and write test cases for those. And what that is just going through the screens that our designer has produced, and going through step by step and writing down what is supposed to happen and when, to make sure that the end product, we can go back and look at that test case and make sure that all of the design specifications are met once it's complete. And like I said, in just a short 4-month period that I've been with Continuum Labs, I've become a primary player in the development of a new breed of medical software that I'm really excited about. And like I said, I've been in the healthcare industry for 11 years, and I haven't seen any software like this. And from working with our research department, we haven't found anything else yet, so it's exciting. Just to kind of give you sort of a visual of the process we go through and what I kind of do every day. Like I said, the information that we take from the meetings is organized into an internal program that we use. So my job is to go in here and organize all of the tasks that are to be accomplished in order to get the end product that we want. I meet with the design team to discuss what we'd like to see on each screen. Once we've established what it is we want the screen to look like and what we want it to do, the designer will come and give us wireframes, which is basically just sort of a very initial computer drawing of what the page is going to look like. And just for example, on our recent upgrades that we've made in design to CareSync, one of the options on our medication screens is to enter the amount of medication, the unit, and when. So this is what the designer produced, and these were her options that she put into this field. So when I meet with her, when she gets the wireframes, we meet together and discuss the specs so I can provide my input around medical terminology and just the workflow. So my input was to change some of the wording and some of the times of days to make it a little more user-friendly. So the designer makes recommended changes which are implemented into the final design. And so this is just a screenshot of my input actually on the program, which is kind of cool. I also did a lot of research surrounding our databases that we've implemented into CareSync. When you go to type in your provider, your physician, or your medication, your allergies, your health conditions, we have a database that we draw from so that you can choose that option out of that database. And I did a lot of research to make sure that those databases were accurate and relevant and something that we wanted to use. We have an option on our allergy screen to choose common allergies if you don't want to search through the whole database. It's just a quick step to picking which allergy is applicable to you. So I came up with just a list of common allergies from my research, and that was implemented into the final product, as you can see there, which again is kind of cool. That's something I did, is like, something that people are going to use now. Something I'm currently working on with design is we have our new story screens, which is just kind of going to be a compilation of all the information that you enter into the program, just sort of a quick step to look and see what's going on with your health, what you have coming up with your health. One of my suggestions was to have immunizations as part of that screen. So I've been working with our designers to give, just my medical input on what the proper terminology is and what the best way to input that into the screen is. So, like I said, so that's just kind of like a little overview of the things that I do. And when I started, I wasn't doing all those things. I was just basically doing quality assurance, which is sitting down, using our product, making sure that everything's working okay, and if it's not, it's my job to let somebody know so that it can be fixed, so that we can have the best product that we can have for the user. And as I said earlier, I love Hardee County. I live on Main Street. I walk to job and I have lunch, and that's what I want for my children. I moved around a lot when I was younger, and so I didn't have that sort of continuing education with all my friends, like the people I went to high school with who've been in kindergarten together. So, and I want that for my kids. And so, if you had told me, in the fall that I would be working for a computer software company, I would have laughed at you, because that's just hasn't been an opportunity here. And so, I just personally want to thank you for giving me that opportunity to learn a new skill, and it's something that I not only can use here, but I can build on. If I decide I want to go back to school for software design, I can do that, and I have like a base knowledge for that, and it's something that I've really considered doing since starting here. So and I go to South Florida, South Florida State College. I guess it's State College now, so there you go. So thank you very much, and I'm going to let Travis Sorge continue with the presentation of what he has.
Thank you very much. You know, I know that another gentleman got up here and said that there are always opinions. Everybody sort of feels about one issue one way or the other. Certainly, we're all familiar with that, with broadcast news and just the recent elections and so forth. If you remember, we came here and talked about doing this in September. And we said that we would immediately create some jobs. We went out, we hired people, and they came through the Florida Workforce Board. We used the infrastructure. It's very interesting, a metaphor about what Cynthia said, which wasn't scripted on our part, by the way. I mean, those are her heartfelt feelings. Those are her experiences. You saw the month before Mr. Smith come up here and say how he was a nurse and now he is an Android developer. And he showed you code. We've done that in a few months. For state colleges and universities, we take years to do that. Their path is not as intensive. We immerse people in 8 to 10 hour days. And we, for lack of a better word, immerse them completely in a project. Sometimes they don't think they can swim, but we rescue them and we lead them on the way. It has been a wonderful opportunity to see people excel. The metaphor that I think is interesting is that gentleman just talked about PTS04, talked about aggregate health, talked about how this economic development of a raw material known as a phosphate that's in the ground and extracting that meaningful element, and then there's pieces left over. And how that economic development really talked about a natural or physical resource. In terms of that natural resource that God put here, that you then can turn into money and products and create jobs, and then people earn money and they grow their families. Software is unique in that we take human resources, no different than the natural one that you have. We take them and we encourage them and we cultivate them, and we have our own kilns, if you will, to where we sort of turn up the heat and take out any of the noise and focus on something. When we look at the things that we've done and the things that I said we would do, please recognize that we are 4 months and 7 days past the first hiring date for that initial class. I don't know of anyone that has created that type of progress in that short amount of period of time. And we had Christmas and holidays and New Year's in between. So I want to use this opportunity to remind you that I think we are making great progress. Software development is expensive. I know it is. But also, some of the largest companies on the planet that create value are software technology companies. The largest cash depositor in the world is Apple. They're sitting over on $130 billion in cash. They have more money than the federal government. And it's not to say that they're bad or good. It's just to say that we are living in a technology age where something affects hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. We are on our 70th billion, with a B, 70 billion download on iPhones. 70. Do you realize that 5 years ago there was no such thing as an iPad repair technician? The jobs are changing. And so I respect the energy that goes into economic development, but I think that your diversified plan and saying that we can take natural resources and we can take human resources and we can change and cultivate both. Because you know what? Towns and communities are made up of all different types of interests. And I will tell you that our age group, the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s, we don't really even go to the bathroom anymore without an iPhone. This is the second screen. This gets viewed more than television now. And so when you look at the fact that technology is an incredible influence in our life, then yes, an organization like ours, who ironically is at the epicenter of all the economic development effort in Hillsborough County to create the healthcare Silicon Valley. They just hired a new guy that started the spaceport out in New Mexico, and now he is hired and just started in Tampa. And they're working with Clasco and USF and Florida Hospital and Moffitt and all this to create Tampa, Florida, or the Silicon Valley for healthcare. And they have a big kickoff in May. We are at the right place at the right time. This is a great software project. Our Tech River program is working. continue to show that it works. And let me just go through the updates from last month's slides to say where I was then, and let's look at my progress. So we had said last month that I told you what were the 120 days coming up. In February, I said that we would do certain things with dashes. You remember, dashes is two things. One, it is our sandbox. You can't kill people if you mess up the code in dashes. You could affect negatively somebody's health or the healthcare act. And dashes is our sandbox. And so when Cynthia and others first started, they worked on dashes. They learned software coding, QA, the software development process. So this product, which is continuing to evolve with those group of people as they learn their skills, will then become the journal side inside CareSync. So it has a parallel path to where they will cross and have synergy. We are well on track to that. And if any of you are watching the news and so forth, we just did what we called Mad Dash 2. And that was the second version of the software. It was released on February 22nd. We are on track to continue to market this to groups. We've been in the Tampa Tribune on Sunday. We've been in several online publications about the announcement. And why is that important? It's important because the marketing people that we have here employed at Tech River for Continuum are the people that are helping them. They're learning marketing skills, which is just as vital to any software or any company, and that is distribution of the message. CareSync. We said that we were going to do some retooling in it, and we did. We made that thing smart. And as Cynthia attested to in a presentation, she does not know of another application that is a patient-facing side that is as smart. Remember, if you printed out the source code, which is kind of hard to see when everybody is used to looking from an agricultural standpoint, a measurement of progress, source code is kind of hard because you never see what's on the back end. You only as a user see on the front. But if you remember, if we print it out, it would be over 40 feet tall. If you fell off our source code, you would die. I mean, it is that tall. That is mammoth keystrokes. That is a lot. That is tens of thousands of hours of coding and design. We have now put in our second release, which just launched on Friday of 1.2, caresync.com. Please go and sign up. And we have a feedback button on there as well. And as we will continue on with 2 to 3 week iterations, you will now see, based upon our cadence, that you will see updates to that software regularly. Concierge. This is one of our true differentiators, and this is where our opportunity is not to just add the technical jobs to software development, but this is an opportunity. Remember, we have the opportunity with our software and the technology to potentially create hundreds of jobs in Hardee. Not tens, 20s, or 50. Hundreds. And I'm not talking about $8 an hour people. I'm talking about people who know nursing terminology, who will handle patients' documents. If you look at what's going on in the state right now about Florida trying to fight with the federal government in terms of increasing Medicaid or not and wanting to be stewards of their own future and be influenced or not by the federal system for Medicaid, look at the billions of dollars of healthcare records that are trapped in paper and trapped from one doctor that's simply maybe across the street from another doctor. There is no mechanism to share. And so what we talked about in terms of our concierge program of calling these physicians on behalf of the patients, taking the documents, scanning them in so they have them for the rest of their lives, but then taking the data and transcribing it into the software, we have created stickiness and we've created immediate value. And so I'll tell you about some meetings that we had with 2 extremely large organizations last week regarding this and how they really know that because healthcare is changing, unlike any other time that we've had in our life, perhaps maybe the exception of the introduction of the Medicare system as a whole, everything is changing. Everything is becoming now more and more scrutinized in terms of cost. But what is it? The fact of it is that the patient is still in the dark. So when I become passionate about information and going to med school at USF and going through the process of seeing things on both sides and having experience in creating software companies and selling them to even the likes of Allscripts, which is what the system that USF even runs, is the fact that patients are largely in the dark. They are intimidated by the provider system, and they don't feel that they are as informed. There are over 5,000 rare diseases in the United States. It makes up 30 million patients. On average, each rare disease costs a payer $100,000 a year. Imagine if we could just change by 5% the efficiency so that a patient had their complete chart on their handheld and that their family was sharing the data with them and put in the missed information because the patient may not have understood what the doctor said, but the husband or the wife or the daughter or the mother or the son was in there putting in the data in real time. So I believe the combination of concierge and CareSync is certainly a real winning combination. And we returned back from HIMSS last week, the largest healthcare show on the planet Earth. 100,000 people went there. There were so many people there, they actually broke the water system. And so they couldn't flush toilets and so forth for a few days. But the point I'm saying is that there was nobody that was doing concierge with what we're doing because we are trying to create a family healthcare record with a meaningful platform that integrates to national systems. That was one of the reasons my prior company was purchased and acquired, is because we built everything on medical terminology, which means that when they plugged into our system, all of our data was structured. It wasn't a bunch of free rambling text. Every character was in English, their system spoke English, and it was like you and I reading any newspaper. If it's all in the same language, we can understand it. We are on track. We have started our pilot. And with our pilot, we've also now started designs. And so Cynthia could attest to this as well, is that now we design these screens. We're designing them not only for concierge to enter in data, but for the patient as well. Tech River Park. I told you that we would move in as soon as the thing was ready. It was ready at 10:30 a.m. on February 12th. We moved in shortly after lunch. So, with the precision of a military unit, we moved in 2 hours after that building was signed off by the fire marshal. We are now waiting on furniture. It has been ordered. We all voted on it last week. Last month, designer picked it out. It was to meet the common areas of the building as well as the classroom. Classes will begin as soon as there's place for the students to sit other than on lawn chairs. Our hires, we've added more to our ranks. So we'll talk more about that, but we've hired more people since we had last spoken. Specifically, this new gentleman called Nick is actually a developer. Here's the thing, his wife works for Geico. She works the day shift. We have accommodated his schedule so he can work the night shift, and he can be the day dad and take care of their newborn. Being flexible and being in the fact that if you're mentored in such a way that you can code at night and check it in the morning, it helps. But you talk about the aggregate that's out there on the ground. Think about it from my perspective as a CEO. You having the flexibility to sit there and allow somebody to say, I really want to use my skill sets, but my wife has a better job than what I have, and she has the health insurance right now, and we can't change. We interviewed him over the phone. We had a couple of references, and we hired him, and now he's in the process of people determining where he can be within the software development lifecycle. The incubator, we're still planning the incubator, which really brings up a good point. If you think about the term incubator, at least from my perspective, I know from agricultural it's a little bit different, but from my perspective, it's what happens when things are born prematurely. And we put them in things called NICUs and others, and Tampa General is very famous for theirs. Any baby truly gets sick and it can't breathe on its own or something, Tampa General is probably the place that you're going to take it to short of Miami Children's. We are desperately trying to build a technology park. So when people try to vilify what we're doing, at some point you need to understand you're hurting your own money. You're devaluing the things that you're allocating trying to support. If you have questions that are legitimate, I don't know that I've ever not been transparent to give you the answers to those. But recognize at the same time that if those questions seem to be on the level of being that we're a villain, that you're also attacking Hardee residents. And so from my perspective, any employer, any CEO, anybody in management tries to do what? Maximize the human resource. You don't go in and yell at your employees and make them feel badly. You expect them to still stay. Or worse yet, they stay and they don't do anything. So please just recognize that we are trying to bring in an incubator system here. That is part of the technology part. That is part of our agreement, and we continue to do that. And we'll talk to you about the fact on how, and if you even look in some of the articles, we have spoken to the likes of Tampa Tribune and others about how we're trying to bring an incubator here. And in some of my meetings, we talked about it as well. So please just remember, the CareSync is in the big picture is a product and it's a service. And each of these jobs that we are talking about here There are one or more people here in Hardee doing that. Many times they're shadowing others. One of the things that we're doing is that we're taking a person and promoting him into sales. And I will mentor him directly about putting healthcare knowledge into his head so that he has a chance for even further promotions in compensation to work on this person's skill set, because he's proven himself to help out very, very well with the technology, or the Tech River Park construction project. Concierge, nurses, customer support, more sales and marketing. We have multiple people on the marketing staff here. They are learning, and they just did it with dashes. What is it like to take a piece of software and nationally talk about it? And the different things that are online. For our world in software, we are more mentioned in the online space than we are necessarily in other media outlets. And so the nice thing is that they're online all the time. We got picked up by a Russian. It has no relation to Vera, by the way, my German friend. And so, but we actually got critiqued and found favorable, 5 stars I think it was, that they like dashes from Russia. So it was kind of interesting to know that when we talk about what we do, we have a global reach, not just a corridor on I-4 or 17. What is CareSync? Again, I want to remind you the fact and why it's different. I know that some people have mentioned, well, you can go and you can Google PHRs or something. We're not a PHR. And that's why we're radically different. Is it a PHR silos your data? You have one user, one password, my record, sign out. End of story. It is a siloed piece of data to which still creates an inaccurate record, because then it's only as good as you, the individual, put the data in. Remember that we are a family health record, and that's how we practice healthcare. My wife gets sick or my children get sick, it becomes a priority for me, and I'm involved in the delivery of the cure or the treatment. As a result, I have information about that they may not have. It's kind of like sharing the story, and everybody has all the facts. We are one of the very first that we know of that is a family healthcare record application that is built on known standards and terminology. With the concierge service, Cynthia talked about it, her concern about her job security. We know that there is a large healthcare organization in town that has basically laid off more people than they've hired over the last couple of years. I don't know them, I don't critique them in any way. There are influences in businesses that we all must adjust to. But the fact is, that's my aggregate. You talk about the aggregate that's in the ground for Mosaic and CF. My aggregate is people who have been exposed to healthcare. I put them in my kiln of the software development lifecycle, and I probably get some really good people that enjoy the social fabric of a small town, but have just as much of a valid input on the design of an immunization screen or any of these other workflows as somebody would from San Francisco or Silicon Valley. I will tell you that we are on a healthcare revolution. You want to Google something, Google e-patient. The e-patient movement is what the Tea Party is to politics, e-patients is to healthcare. It is one of their chief mascots is a guy named Patient Dave. He has created the mantra that says, give me my damn data. So there is a movement where patients want to know what their data is. They want to feel like when they go to a physician's office, they say, this is what I want out of the visit. And so we believe that these tools are being created in such a way in our software that creates the stickiness to where you really have that information. We think that the concierge service will help kickstart the data entry. We are working on all avenues, large and small, to become one of the very first softwares ever designed for HCOs. That is another big term that the government came out with about a year plus ago. It's called Accountable Care Organizations. It's basically where you share the responsibility for the reimbursement of the patient. If you are a physician, so where you have sort of like half acre, you've max bid out the project, you've max bid the procedure that you're going to provide for a person. You told the government, we will charge you $100, we will do it. Government comes back and says, here's your $100, but you can't charge us $105. You can't come back for more. I'm oversimplifying it, but if you are now the CEOs of those healthcare systems, you're looking to say, I really want to deliver that at 90 or 80. I want to have a margin. I don't want to spend 100 and collect 100. And so the way that you do that is you control healthcare costs. And how do you do that and not involve the patient? I mean, this is a radically new approach. In the fact that arming the patient with the same amount of data and the same structure as your physician has allows you to have a meaningful conversation. So I think that our service is to help collect. Mobile design starts officially coding on April 1st. It's awesome. It is phenomenal. I've shared a couple of screens with some of the people, and it really is truly going to be what we call Visit Manager is a game changer. To be able to go, here's the to-dos that I want out of my appointment. I'm in my appointment. Here are the things the doctor is telling me about my appointment, and now here are the to-dos when I leave the appointment. That is immediately available in real time to anybody else you shared your chart out with. You know how nice it would be if somebody's mother who lives in New Jersey, they're tracking the visit in real time here in Tampa, in Wauchula, here in our area, where you basically have people that are disparate. Children went away to college and never came back. Parents want to retire and they go up north and they come back and forth. And so these pockets and silos of data are highly disadvantageous, I think, to healthcare as a whole and trying to control the costs, and which ultimately means healthier people. So I've said these before and just quickly run through. We are now in version 1.2. It is live. Please log on. Dashboard 2.0 is available on Android, iPhone, and on the web. Please download it. We moved into Tech Park a few hours later. We had 2 major visits. And so I want to talk about the sales and marketing effort, because one of the things is you don't want to be a military secret in our space. Florida Hospital, March 5th. Aetna Corporation, March 8th. Both said the same thing. We have no way to communicate with our patients. We have no platform for our incubators and our other companies to coordinate. Florida Hospital has spent 9 figures in Cerner and NextGen. Great systems for physicians in the hospital and physicians in ambulatory practice. Other than their individual patient portals, they have no way to communicate with their patients. The system is broken. This very much excites them. Because why? It's not a text entry system like some PHR. It is a real medical system that was built for the patient. We have an API, and we've talked about that term a lot over the last year. We have an API that readily can plug into those systems. There are very much eager follow-up meetings that are coming right after these. We have signed the initial agreement, and we signed the actual copies on Monday for what I talked about in the Smarter X. This is a company that we're encouraging to bring to to Wauchula, to hopefully assemble and recycle their technology. But I just want to pass this picture around. So that is a game changer in healthcare, because it allows people to understand the pills are coming in and out of their bottle. And so it will notify our software, and our software will notify anybody else that they're sharing a medical record with. But we are the company that is the front end for that technology. It is very awesome and exciting to be in a position where you have people that are tackling $1 billion space, and you get to be the consumer front end for that technology. It truly is awesome progress. And we've made, I think, light years of progress in 4 months and 1 week since our first hire. And if you include the meeting before that, we're a little over 5 months. These are some of just 2 of the mobile screens to give you a sneak peek. We kicked off the design. This is now going through, and Cynthia's and others look at how each screen goes through, what button should do what does the workflow look like. We will be trying to, and this is an intent, we are going to nationally launch the Relay for Life here in Wauchula on 4/26. And so we are desperately going to try to get the first version of this, which means anything you put into the web is now available on the mobile. And now you can hit a button within the mobile, will have your provider, and you can fax them your medical chart as you stand right there at check-in. So when you're paying your copay, you can send them all your records with our software. And so we hopefully have that first version by launch. Tech River Park update. The bandwidth of the building has been increased. That is good. I will tell you it would be very hard to have a technology park here and not have access to the technologies that exist in global level. It would be impossible, not just in the business park, but recognize that, again, our human resources are aggregate. Them being influenced by Facebook at night and other means of what's happening in terms of the behaviors, what their customs of usability are in other applications is essential as they come back and add that flavor of what they liked and disliked into our software's workflow. Neat thing here, and this is important, is that they start tomorrow with the installation of the security system. So what that means for us, because we're all intellectual property, and so our facts, our figures, and things that we have are designed, even our screens are proprietary. And so if you don't believe that, go say something bad about Apple and see if you don't have an attorney knocking at your door. We will have these swipe cards. And so this is important for our compliance and certifications because we all have healthcare records so that we can tell when people come and go. And if for some reason they go on vacation or something, we can deactivate their card and reactivate it later or lose it and deactivate it. It's a quantum leap versus the mechanical brass keys that we're familiar with. Furniture has been ordered, as I spoke about. Here are things by the number. We received 16 new resumes. We've done interviews. We now have 3 additional contract hires. We have clinical design specialists. We talked about that, and we still have 100% retention. So we've not had any turnover except that one person that didn't make it through our boot camp. And then there it is by the numbers in terms of the breakout as to which part of the company that they work in. Thank you very much for your time.
The board received the draw request for this month yesterday, as well as you have it in your packet. The total request for this month is $292,295.15. Going through the draw request this month, there were not really any unusual changes with the exception of some furniture purchases, as well as the conference that Travis mentioned, which is the largest medical conference that they attended last week. I'll be happy to answer any questions, as well as Mr. Brown will as well.
Before we move forward, I'm going to yield this chair to Vanessa. I would possibly have a conflict of interest here since my son works for Continuum.
I did have a question for Mr. Bond. I know that you mentioned in reference to the training that Cynthia received in comparison to what, if she would have taken that path through a traditional college or university. Can you speak to that a little bit and help us, kind of better understand what you're going to be able to do with training these folks? What would the normal path be in training an Android or an iPhone developer versus what you're doing here? I mean, obviously, it seems like a lot to do in 4 months.
It is. I think that if you wanted to speak a foreign language, you'd probably go to where they speak it, so that you wouldn't hear your own and you would naturally forget your native language and you would start to, out of necessity, speak the native language to that land in hopes of becoming bilingual as soon as possible. That's kind of what we've done here. And I think you can carry out the analogy that if you wanted to take, say, Spanish in college, you would do it over a few years. And I think that I can attest that I took a year of Spanish, and I do not know much Spanish. However, I made A's in my classes. So going through a class and achieving whatever testing requirements they have isn't necessarily a direct correlative between to proficiency in what you're taking. And so a normal classroom environment right now at the college level, whether it's a community college or it's a 4-year program university, is they're going to put you through computer sciences and you will study a language. The problem is at the time you understand one language, it's already out of date. When you look at the turnover in technology, it's measured now in months, not years. And so the iPhone 5, by the way, is a different programming terminology and a different SDK than 4. And so there is this iterative process as even as the firmware and the hardware companies come out in their languages. So we are different in that we not just immerse them into what it is sort of the swim or drown, but they're paired up with people that you would never get in a classroom setting. And so Cynthia works directly with Sarah. And Sarah is directly working with a man and a team of people that probably have just on her immediate team 100 years in healthcare experience. And so having that day-to-day interaction and sort of, I feel like going and playing with just a bunch of good people. After a while, you would just get better. And so for us, it's accelerated, 1. But 2, when you look at what we're investing in terms of the mentoring and training thing, is that I'm trying to build a core. No different than building an initial plant to prove the concept. Is that Tech River, this class, and one of the reasons that we rushed to get people in it as quickly as we could is because these are the founding fathers for Wauchula Tech Park. They will be and do and perform in a way that when new hires come in, they accept the norm. And so even as we continue to put them through what we do as a product and service, they will set the cultural standards to what's appropriate in terms of behaviors and expectations that are really being set by people who have in their entire adult life have done this. That is very different than a college program where you take it, that program, you're there 50 minutes if you're doing a day course, you're there for 2 hours if you're taking a night course. And if you don't come back and then immediately apply it, which we do, then you lose it. And so it's sort of the analogy, a user will lose it. If you don't continue to speak the foreign language you think you know, it falls out of your head. And so that is how it is different. It's immersion, it's the mentoring, but it's also giving them projects to work on immediately to apply what they're being learned on, or they're being taught. Universities typically just use laboratories for different examples, mythical companies, mythical projects, mythical functionality. Matter of fact, many of the people that apply would send us their college projects. And we're like, wow, you know, that's nice that you sent this and you got an A on it, but that was last year, and you know, we don't do that anymore. You know, things have changed, whether it's pseudomorphism or any of these other different sort of design techniques. Does that answer your question?
I did just want to mention something. Travis touched on it briefly, but we did purchase and order the furniture that was voted on last month for the common areas in the building out of a company called Office Furniture Depot in Lakeland. We anticipate that the furniture will be delivered later this week. So hopefully next month we would be able to schedule our board meeting there to do tours of the park so everybody could see what has been accomplished.
Any other questions from board members? Donald?
Yeah, this request is for January 2013. Is that correct?
It's actually dated, it's for February 28th, so it was the month of February.
Well, it says draw request for January 2013 on my paper.
I don't. That just must have been a typo up at the top where the date of the request is. It says February 28th.
Okay, well, my question is, if this is expenses that's already been made, why do we have in a number of places approximately 1443 hours, approximately 808 hours? I mean, either it ought to be 1443 hours or it's not 1443 hours.
The equation actually goes to the 10th decimal point, so I rounded up and used the word approximate.
What's happening with the calculations of the hour breakdown is Travis is breaking down all of the staff's time and trying to get all of their hours as they relate to this project. And he's doing it so with the help of his accountants, and like you just said, he's breaking it down so much that it's broken down to the 10th of the hour. So if it's, you know, an approximate, it's just rounded up to that next hour.
Any other questions from the board? Are there any questions on the draw request? So
I
yes.
have one question. If you go back through the draw request, there's a number of hotels in West of the Capital, which has your name on it. I'm just curious what those are.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I think that they just used my Amex card, but those are for Hardee people staying over. And so we bring them in, so like we brought in our marketing team and they stayed a few days. And so we try to coordinate people. The beauty of it is the hotel right across the park from me. So it's within walking distance of pizza and breakfast in the morning. We don't have to pay for that. It works out well, and they gave us like a $99 rate or something.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? So we'll have a period of brief public comment. We would ask that you keep your comments to comments. If you have questions, you can direct them to the board members. We will limit the time frame to 3 minutes per comment. And again, I would like to instruct, if you have questions, you may ask them to board members. Any public comment? If not, we'll open for a motion.
Do you want me to handle my agenda items for this project now or later?
When we give you your time, really up to you. If you would like to discuss it now, we'll limit it to this project.
Okay, but I don't want to be limited to 3 minutes because it's just an agenda item.
If you'd like to go ahead and take 3 minutes on this project, then you can address that now.
And then, but if we don't get done, then I can continue.
Then we'll have a section at the end for public comment.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to comment. Thank you, Mr. Bond. I'll get right to my agenda item. I would request to have the board ask Mr. Bond to answer the following questions. Question number 1, is care sync in final testing?
You can go ahead and go through your entire,
If you want the podium and I'll go here.
no, Mr. Coleman, you can go ahead and go through your entire list of comments and direct those to the board.
And then you have the
And
questions.
then we, as the board, will handle any discussion further with Mr. Bond. And I want to remind you, you're on your time now, so.
And I want to clarify that I think you and I agreed that you will ask these questions on my behalf.
We agreed to hear your questions, and at the pleasure of the board, open discussion with Mr. Bond if the board deems appropriate.
She ask Mr. Bond these questions.
If the board deems appropriate. That's correct. So again, I want to remind you, you're on your time. So,
Okay, well, I'll read them real quick, but you have them in front of you. When will CareSync be launched for sale? When will CareSync sales revenue begin? What monthly revenue amount is required to sustain Continuum Labs and Tech River without public life support? When will this occur? What are the revenue and profit projections for the years 2000 and 2013 and 14? Who owns the equipment, supplies, and assets being bought with public money by Mr. Bond through his other companies, Bond Medical, Life Dash, money going to Life Sync Technologies, and any other companies, Tech River, Continuum Labs. Number 7, what happens it's actually August when the money in the current grant cycle runs out and you do not have a successful CareSync product with revenue sufficient to cover your expenses? How will you pay back $5.65 billion to the taxpayers? Is Mr. James Grant, Jennifer Lux, and Mr. Joe Albritton, who signed the LifeSync note, are they liable for repayment of this money? Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Kirkland will go ahead and open up your time to speak as well. Again, I want to remind you, you have 3 minutes.
Well, I would just want to speak on this.
Sure, and just please address to the board.
Okay. What I want to know is when are we going to get a little closer in line with the statutes and these reports that we get from their finances? It's hardly, they're not very usable when the money goes from one bonds to the other bonds, and those bonds are the same people, and it kind of like cuts the paper trail off there, so we don't really know what you're buying. We don't know who you're buying it from, other than when they say, I'm buying it from Bonds Medical. And that sort of stuff is not good. We need to be able to tell what is happening. You guys need to be able to tell what is happening. And it leaves too much room for the imagination. So, are you guys considering ever getting to where you're actually going to validate what's going on here? And the other thing, when you're financing, I've said it before, and everybody looks at me like I'm a moron. When you're financing 100% of everything this company does, you are putting yourself and the county in great liabilities, because in the court situation, you can be construed as part owner, and anything they do can be in your thing. You'll have to talk to attorneys about how that works, but I know that thing is out there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? If not, we'll open for a motion from the board on the draw request. We will need to take action on the draw request, either to approve or deny the draw request. So I'm looking for a motion from the board.
If I may, I might need clarification from Attorney Evers, but I don't think we've ever made a motion to approve the draw request any other month.
I don't recall if you did or not.
I mean, and I'm not saying that we will do it whatever the board's discretion is. It doesn't matter either way, but from whenever I've made a presentation, we've never had a vote for approval of the draw request. But that's completely up to the discretion of the board.
And I think what was represented when Mr. Bond came in the second was it 3 million, even was requested. We stated at that time that it wouldn't be a monthly determination, particularly on each draw, that the draw request would be submitted, they'd be reviewed by the board, but we didn't anticipate voting each and every month.
Thank you for the point of clarification. So we will acknowledge receipt of the draw request.
I mean, and again, it's up to the pleasure of the board if they choose to do so. That's their wish, but that's not something that we've done previously in any of the other draw requests. It's just an acknowledgement of the request.
Thank you.
Is it your intention to discuss my questions that I asked to be discussed?
Mr. Chairman, if you give us the opportunity, we've not moved on from the issue. Thank you.
Well, you were going to vote on it. You were asking for a motion.
Which, once we have a motion and a second, we can still have discussion after that fact. Would any of the board members like to address any of the concerns brought forth from Mr. Coleman or Mr. Kirkland? If not, we'll move on with the agenda.
We have are you going to do this on purpose?
Yep. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can on this. FIRBA actually stands for the Florida Rural Broadband Alliance. It is a private company composed of approximately 15 or 16 rural counties in the state, 9 of which are in North Florida and 6 of which are in our area. In 2010, roughly, we had already initiated a broadband project in Hardee County in conjunction with Rapid Systems. And we agreed to sign a memorandum of understanding that the assets of the Hardee broadband project could be utilized by the other 15 counties to provide a match for a federal grant program. We knew at the time that there was probably very little, if any, good that would be available for Hardee County for participating in FIRBA, but we were eager to allow them to utilize our asset so that they too could have a chance at procuring broadband in the other rural areas of the state. It has taken many twists and turns over the last several years. There are numerous lawsuits going on with FIRBA. It has a sister grant award that was a result of the stimulus project called the North Florida Broadband Association. And as there was, I think there was 13 or 14 counties in that group. And as of last week, 8 of the counties had withdrawn from that group. There has been no withdrawals from FIRBA, the group that we're in as of this date. FIRBA is at odds with our vendor and partner that built our system in Hardee County. And last week I had proffered the following questions to FIRBA because they had made a request of the Board of County Commissioners and of the IDA to address certain issues. Basically, they are asking that we somehow intercede in the transfer of assets from Hardee Industrial Development Authority to Rapid Systems. These were the questions that I proffered to FIRBA. Can you explain to me the circumstances related to FERBA altering the Hardee broadband system? I'm still unclear on exactly how that came about. I can't tell you it was bad. Actually, at the end of the day, their alteration of our system was a good thing. Who requested those alterations? Who performed the alterations, and how much labor above the cost of materials was spent on the alterations? How much did FERBA pay to install their equipment in Hardee County? How much will it cost to remove their equipment in Hardee County? Remember here, FERBA is using federal stimulus money, and it has a different set of spending criteria and accountability. Do we even know today, and I'm not certain, that the Hardee system can be restored to its pre-altered or engineered condition? And I'm asking them if they know whether or not that's the case, because I'm not certain that once our system was altered, that it can be effectively converted back to the way it was and still function as we expect it to function. I've also asked them if they intend to restore Hardee County back to its original condition, if that can happen from an engineering standpoint. Then my last question was, if so, what is the anticipated cost to remove the FERBA equipment and restore the integrity of the Hardee system, and who pays to do that? Now, the issue here is about $93,270 and some change worth of electronic equipment. I suspect that the cost to install that equipment was several $100,000. The cost to remove it is also going to be substantial, and then the cost to restore the Hardee system will be added on top of that. It seems to me a bit ridiculous for us to be involved in a dispute like this when the amount of money at stake is only $93,000. I did not get a response back from FERBA. I had told them that I would agenda their specific items in letter if they gave me a response back. We did not get that. But we did get a response late yesterday from Rapid Systems attorney Nicholas and Bell in Tampa, Florida. And they basically have taken the position that our transfer of assets from the IDA to Rapid Systems draweth nigh. Matter of fact, March 11th is the date that we should convert. We have initiated the audit related to the transfer of assets with Clifton Larson Allen. They are auditing Rapid Systems books at this time, and from my perspective, the proper thing for us to do relative to the contracts is once the audit proves up that they have done everything they anticipated to do, we take up the issue of transferring the assets and stay out of the issue between FERBA and Rapid Systems. Mr. Evers, do you want to comment on any of that?
I concur.
Any questions?
Yeah, you've got me confused. I got some questions here that you may have answered. Let me go through the first one. I guess we're talking about the equipment out in southeast Hardee County that supplies the broadband to Highlands County and DeSoto County. Is that what we're talking about?
I'm going to try to give you a layman's explanation of this.
Well, it's got to be just a yes or
The original, it's not southeast Hardee County necessarily. It really is the whole southern tier of our three-ring architecture that comprises the Hardee broadband system. When FERBA came in and modified our system, they took Motorola radios called PTP-800s down and replaced them with a product called Ceragon. The Ceragon radios had a capacity of approximately 4 times the capacity of the PTP-800s. Basically, we had a capacity expectation of 250 gigabytes. The Ceragon radios, 250 gigabytes, I think. What's beyond a gigabyte, Dustin? A megabyte?
It's 250 meg.
250 meg, and the Ceragons provided up to a gigabyte of service. FERBA's intention was to utilize the ILA POP at ONA to increase the backhaul capacity of their system so that the Hardee broadband system was a springboard to move into the other 5 counties. They came in, they altered the structure of our system, they put their radios on our towers, and built a link to move into their communities. They took our stuff down at their expense, and this demand letter to take their equipment back without restoring the integrity of our system, if it can be done. You have to remember that each of these radios are programmed, and it goes into a sophisticated network that is beyond my competency to really discuss with you in this meeting. But we really are going to have some issues if they take this equipment back. I don't think any of us in this room want to beat the federal government or FERBA out of an investment they've made here, but it just seems to me a bit ridiculous to spend $200,000 to $500,000 to take equipment down, replace it, restore the system, when all that is at issue is $93,000 with us. Now, there are other issues with Rapid Systems and FERBA that really need to be resolved in a legal forum. I think we would be best advised to not intercede in those affairs.
That's too long of an answer. I forget the question by the time you quit talking. I done forgot my question. All right, let me try to start over. I thought you said earlier that we didn't know who put the equipment up there.
No.
You know, I didn't know.
No, I said who authorized the equipment, because we never authorized the equipment.
Well, that's one of my questions. I didn't know FERBA had this equipment installed. And, you know, I was under the impression when I heard about where they were shooting this broadband that Rapid System had installed it. That's what I thought.
Rapid Systems installed it under the contractual relationship between Rapid Systems and FERBA. As best I can tell.
Okay.
I don't know. We were not consulted in this process.
That's another one of my questions. Did the IDA approve this, or did we have the authority to approve it, or we weren't asked to approve as a board?
We have a memorandum of understanding, which is essentially a gentleman's agreement that defines the relationship between the Hardee IDA and FERBA and between Rapid Systems and FERBA. To my knowledge, we have never, not one aspect of the memorandum of understanding have we violated from the perspective of the Hardee County Industrial Development Authority, nor has Rapid Systems violated any aspect of their agreement. Remember, a memorandum of understanding is not a contract. It is simply a gentleman's agreement.
Okay.
But we're continuing to recognize the conditions of that gentleman's agreement, even though contracts were never consummated between FERBA, the Hardee IDA, and Rapid Systems.
Okay, well, my question is, if this board did not have any dealings with this, I mean, I didn't know that FERBA was involved with it. When I heard about that it was done, I was under the impression that Rapid Systems had done it totally with their money and the whole 9 yards. So if we didn't have anything to do with it as a board, it looks to me like it was just a bad business decision. So why should we have to pay for it?
I'm not saying that we have to pay for it. All I'm saying is that the logic of settling a $93,000 equipment bill relative to a $200,000 or $300,000, I don't know, maybe a $500,000 labor bill, just defies any type of accountability with the expenditure of public funds from the perspective of FERBA and the federal government.
So the 90, yeah, I'm not very smart. So I'm trying to figure out is if we don't pay the $91,000 for Rapid Systems to FERBA, then we're going to have to pay $300,000 or $400,000 down the road for something else.
I'm not recommending that we pay anything at this point in time. I see no reason for that. I'm saying that I don't think at this point the IDA has a dog in this fight. It does have a dog in the fight if FERBA manages to, through court order or federal edict or whatever, to disrupt the function of the Hardee broadband system. If that happens, then we have a dog in the fight. But at this point, I don't think we do. I think we move on. We have contract with Rapid Systems that has come to an end. We are going through the audit process with that contract, and from my perspective, we honor the terms of the contract.
So what are you asking us to do today?
It's just an information item. We had this.
Okay, there's nothing, we're not going to vote on anything for money or anything like that?
No.
Okay. I thought we were, because I thought that our attorney said at the last county commissioners meeting that he was going to propose that we pay the $91,000.
Let me say this, I spoke with Mr. Evers after he made that comment, and I believe that it would be appropriate for us as a stopgap measure to, as a good faith measure of our obligation under the MOU, to escrow the $93,000 for the equipment until the matter is resolved. That hasn't happened. There's no justification to do that.
Well, if we don't have a dog in the fight, why would we even do that?
Because if not, then they may be able to come take the equipment, which would disrupt our broadband network.
Well, it's their equipment though, right?
But I don't think that's been determined, and so that's what he's saying. There's nothing for us to do about it at this point.
They paid to alter the Hardee broadband system. FERBA did. I don't really object to them taking their equipment back, but they need to restore the integrity. They need to put it back the way they found it, if that can happen. I'm not certain that that can even happen anymore. It'd be like somebody saying, Mr. Samuels, we want to build a second floor on your house. And they come in and they build the second floor, and then they decide, no, we don't want that second floor, but we're going to leave it up there, but we're going to take all the structure that supports it underneath out. Well, if that happens, your house is going to collapse, and I don't think that's wise.
Okay, there wasn't any agreement between FERBA and Rapid Systems that if something like this come up, that the equipment was
Again,
theirs or ours or
I'm
somebody's?
asking for that detail. That was the purpose of the email.
Does this, this may be out of order, but is the ILA POP any part of this process or not? Is that something separate?
The ILA POP, there were actually two letters received. One referred to the ILA POP, and I can tell you the preference is for the ILA POP connection that FERBA is using to be terminated. But we do not have an ability to terminate their connection. They have to do that themselves.
Right.
If they do, it's as simple as unplugging this here and plugging it in over there. I mean, there's no delay or anything.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and that was one of my concerns is if FERBA does cut it off and we cut it back on, is there enough use of that thing to pay the monthly bill on that, or is there a monthly bill?
We have redundant capacity within the ILA POP to replace the bandwidth and the backhaul that they are providing.
So is the answer yes or no?
Yes.
So there'll be enough money generated. What's it cost a month? $300,000 a month or something, or $100,000 a month to have that pop out there?
No, it's probably between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. And the reference in their letter was that one of my arguments with FERBA from day one is when this stimulus money came out, they immediately contracted with Level 3, I know Level 3, there may have been other bandwidth providers for services, and they paid them millions of dollars up front. That money was prepaid as a part of the grant. It's non-refundable. It is there, whether anyone uses the bandwidth or not. Hardee County's only involvement was when they altered our system. They came out of the ILA POP, went through the increased capacity of the microwave and of the radios that go from the ILA POP into our ring network. And let's see if I can I don't want to lose you here.
Don't lose me.
But that bandwidth was necessary to handle the bandwidth that would be traveling over Hardee County through Highlands, down to DeSoto, Glades, Hendry, Okeechobee counties. And then there was to be another data center ILA POP type connection in Okeechobee, and it would pick up additional capacity for that area. If they don't utilize the Hardee broadband system, we're nothing relative to our system is going to be impacted unless they find a way to take the equipment back without restoring the integrity of our system. Now, you know, if you do not feel concerned about that, you should. And nobody wants, I want to make this clear, no one wants to take advantage of FERBA or the federal government relative to their equipment. But they do have a legal dispute, and I reiterate, please, once again, they are two private sector companies. Do not believe that FERBA is a government entity. It is an LLC. And it operates as a private company. They need to settle their legal dispute, and we just need to monitor and make sure that their legal dispute doesn't splatter onto us relative to the operation and functioning of our system.
Yeah,
I will continue to do so.
I have rapid system service at my house, and I like it. And my grandson loves it. But I just don't know if we should get into the middle of maybe a bad business decision, either on FERBA's part or Rapid Systems' part.
The current request from FERBA is for the IDA to pay 93.
I think that what FERBA is asking the IDA to do is to intercede in the transfer of assets. And I don't see that we have a dog in that fight. They do want their equipment back, and I have proffered that, give us some justification for you to take your equipment back. I can tell you that Rapid is obviously preparing to go to court with them over this issue, and all I believe we can effectively do is sit and watch and monitor. And if something happens that we need to call an emergency meeting that will require board action, I will notice you and we'll do so. But right now, I believe that doing nothing is the best thing, other than acknowledging that we're going to continue through the audit process with Clifton Larson Allen, auditing the requirements of the contract. And once that's done, we will come before you with a contract transfer, and we'll transfer the assets. Everything is as it's supposed to be.
With the subject of the earmarking the money, escrowing the money at 9,300 or 93,000, is that an IDA decision or a commissioner's decision?
The BOCC they have one involvement from my perspective in this issue. The BOCC has given leases for the Rapid Systems poles. There's about 15 of them on county property, county right-of-ways. It is not uncommon for telecommunications and utilities to have usage of right-of-ways on county property. CenturyLink has cables buried all over the county. I suspect Comcast has some. Natural gas people have gas lines buried on county right-of-ways throughout the county. Utilities have easements in all types of places in the county. There's nothing that's strange or unique about the poles being placed on county right-of-way. And that agreement can be broken too. I think it's 30 days notice, and the county originally participated in this program because they saw the opportunity for us to have a ubiquitous broadband system, ubiquitous being all-encompassing or omnipresent broadband signal in the county, and that was the reason that they participated, by giving us the easements to place the poles. Does that make sense?
It's fairly easy if it goes to court and Rapid Systems wins, then nothing happens. If FERBA wins, then I think somebody has to, the best solution at that point would be if somebody's ponying up their $93,000 for equipment, unless they're adamant about taking it out because they want to punish it.
Well, I think that it's very, as a taxpayer, I would be extremely interested if the money to pay to put this equipment up, the money to take it down, the money to restore the integrity of the system is disregarded over the value of the equipment. I think it would be a good lesson for all of us to take in American politics, because something's wrong with that equation. Next item is bionitrogen update. Who do we have? There's no board action.
That was just a discussion. It was very, very important that you guys answer the questions for us.
We have a section at the end of the meeting for public comment, and there's no board action on the item, and we are not going to allow public comment after every single agenda item. We will have a section at the end for you to address, and at this time we're going to move on with the meeting.
Well, we can't address 50 items in
Mr.
5
Kirkland,
minutes, 10 minutes, nothing like that.
Mr. Kirkland, I'd like to let you know that we're going to move forward with the meeting. So I'd like to ask you to please refrain at this time, and you will have an opportunity to address the board at the end of the meeting.
You ready?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me? My name is Brian Hardee. I'm the president and CFO of Nitrogen. I have here with me Ernie Naga, who is our chief operations manager, Brian Samuels, who is our facility manager for Hardee County, and Stephen Southwell, our legal counsel. We wanted to give you an update on bio-nitrogen, what we're doing, where we are, and what we're looking to do to move forward. This is an introduction for people who may not know us. We're a clean tech company that utilizes proprietary technology to build environmentally friendly plants that convert biomass, such as trees, into urea fertilizer. It's an innovative patent-pending technology that transforms agricultural waste and other products into fertilizer. It is modular in design. The facilities will produce 15 tons of urea fertilizer per hour, or 360 short tons a day. And we're setting up our first plant in Hardee County, Florida, which is about 70 miles, you know where it is. And we're headquartered in Doral, Florida. The next include. We'll go through the project update, challenges, our rail spur initiative, and some recommendations to the Development Authority. This is a timeline from when we started our project in Hardee County. We were introduced to the EDC back in July. We met with them. We started looking at various sites, selection site processes. We looked at several different sites, narrowed it down to 3, and ultimately chose on the piece of property that we closed on in December. In August, we had various meetings through a process that we were recommended to go through by meeting the Chamber of Commerce, local